All right. Make sure you're paying attention, not talking the whole time. Mr. Louganis, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for doing this. I'm Sam
Sure.
Vincent. I teach at Parkersburg High School and lucky enough to have a class called Sports and American Culture. And so we have about 50 students here, and we studied the Olympics to start off the year. So you talking to us really means quite a bit.
Great.
So what we've done in the past, if you're willing to do this, is maybe you'll take a few minutes to talk about your life and career a little bit, and then I'll just pass the computer around for kids to ask questions, if that works for you.
Okay, sure. Yeah.
Okay.
So, I basically got started when I was a year and a half. I started doing dance and acrobatics. And actually, my sister was taking dance classes, and I snuck into the studio and I started imitating what they were doing. And so when I was a year and a half, the teacher said that, we'll let him stay and see how much he can learn. I had my first performance on stage was when I was 3. I sang and danced. I did a little tap number, and then I got a partner, and then that acrobatics and dance that evolved into gymnastics. My partner went into gymnastics, and I followed her into gymnastics. And so I was learning tumbling and gymnastics and all when I was really, really young. And then we had a pool built in our backyard. And so I started trying some of my gymnastic stunts off the diving board at home, and my mother didn't want me to kill myself. I think I was about 7 or 8. And so she got me lessons. First day after the lessons, they asked me to be on the club team. And so I continued with dance, acrobatics, and gymnastics and diving from ages 8 to 12. And then I had Osney slaughter, so I had water on the knee. So I had a knee injury. And so my doctor said that I had to quit everything except diving. And so once I focused on all that energy into one discipline, a year later, when I was 13, I was world champion for my age group. And then 3 years after that, I was on my first Olympic team in Montreal. I was 16 and won a silver medal there. And then I was on the 1980 Olympic team, but we didn't send a team. And then 1984, I got 2 golds in 1984, and I got 2 golds in 1988, and then I retired. So that's my diving career and the Olympics.
All right. That was a great recap. I'm going to let the kids ask questions, if you're good with that.
Sure.
All right. So I promised my all-star student here, David, that he could ask the first question, and then they'll just kind of pass it around.
Okay. All-star David. Yay.
Hello there. How you doing, Mr. Louganis?
Good. How you doing?
I'm good. So I was preparing in class for the question I was going to ask you. I've been thinking about it all day.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you did hit your head in the Olympics, was that the first time you ever did that?
I wish I could. Well, it was the first time on springboard. Okay. I'd never hit my head on the springboard. When I was 19, I was in Tbilisi, Russia, and we had a USA, it was the USSR at that time. So USA versus USSR dual meet. And I was on the platform, and I hit my head on the platform, and I was out for like 20 minutes. I was knocked out. I don't remember it. I don't remember any of it. And I didn't finish the competition. But in 1988, when I hit my head on the springboard, I was conscious. I did get, obviously a concussion, but I got back up on the board and I finished my preliminary dives and was able to dive in the finals and then on platform. So yeah, don't want to make a habit out of that.
Yeah.
It's not good for your health.
Nice. Thank you.
Sure.
Madison, you want a question? Okay. All right, I'm going to pass it off here to Madison. She's a senior here at PHS.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hi, Madison.
So I was wondering, because I know there's two different heights for the dives, right? Like yeah. So what was your favorite, like, to do?
Okay, so in international competition, it's in Olympics. Okay, so let's just take Olympics. There's 3-meter springboard and 10-meter platform. And those are the competition heights. And in nationals, we have 1-meter springboard as well, but it's not recognized in the Olympics. Springboard was much more challenging because the more the board moves, and every single diving board is different. So you got to acclimate to the diving board. 10-meter platform is so much easier because it's a fixed surface and you're always 10 meters above the water. So it's really consistent. So springboard is much, much more challenging. And I like the challenge. I think I was probably better on springboard than I was on platform. Yeah.
Okay.
So springboard.
All right, we're just moving around here. I have a fellow teacher who would like to say something real quick before she has to go back to her next period class.
Okay.
Hello, so welcome. So I grew up watching you dive. My mom was a huge fan. So as a kid, we were watching, I don't even remember how old we are. We won't do the math, but I remember watching you, and I remember watching you hit your head, and we were so worried. And then you got up. So you were such an inspiration. So when I saw that you were going to be interviewed, I was like, I have to come down and see him. So thank you so much for doing this.
Great. Sure, my pleasure.
All right, somebody have a question? Okay, all right. Here is Joey.
Joey. I wanted to ask about the painting in the back. Is that you? Because that's like the dopest painters.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. So Dennis Dutsey is the artist, and and so he did this piece. That's Nipper, my Jack Russell Terrier. She's long gone, and then that's Freeway, my Harlequin Great Dane. And the interesting thing with this painting is that he paints himself in the reflection of the sunglasses.
Ah,
So that's a part of his signature, and it's really cool. Dennis, he passed a number of years ago. I think it was HIV/AIDS related, but he was a friend. He was a friend of mine. Yeah, and I love that. I feel like he captured, my two heart dogs. They were my heart dogs.
Is that your natural hair?
Is this?
Oh, the black hair in the painting.
Oh yeah. I mean, it used to be dark. My hair used to be dark. And this is Pax. So Pax decided to join.
Hi.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Oh, your dog is adorable.
Thanks.
I was curious, whenever you went to the Olympics at 16, can you describe the pressure that was on you?
Yeah, that was really hard because I was diving with Dr. Sammy Lee. Now, Dr. Sammy Lee was an Olympian, two-time Olympic gold medalist. He won back-to-back Olympics in men's platform in 48 and 52, 1948 and 1952. He from the US. And then he coached Bobby Webster, another US diver who won 2 gold medals in men's platform, 60, 64. I was going up against Klaus DiBiase from Italy. And Klaus was going for his 3rd Olympic gold medal. So Dr. Lee was coaching me to prevent Klaus from breaking his record. So that was a lot of pressure. That was a lot of pressure. And it was really hard because, you know, I went there to win. I didn't go there to take second. And then when I got second, I felt like a failure. I mean, I got really depressed. I tried to commit suicide after that. Because I just didn't understand. I mean, I was only 16 and I came back and I was still in high school and everybody was celebrating me and I didn't understand because I felt like I was a failure. Like I let everybody down. I definitely let Dr. Lee down. So, so that was hard. That was very, very challenging. And also studies show that, you know, the highest rate of suicide of Olympians is Olympic silver medalists. So, which kind of makes sense because you go there and you get so close and you're in second. If you get 3rd place, you're just grateful that you got something to bring home. You know, and if you get gold, then, you know, you were expected to win anyways. So, I mean, it's really challenging. So, you know, the awareness is something that's really important for me, you know, to kind of, you know, to reach out to younger athletes who are possibly going through that process, you know, because it's a really high when you go to the Olympics. I mean, it's like, you know, it's everything that you work for. And then all of a sudden when it's over, there's this huge letdown. So, you know, it's post-Olympic blues, basically. So, and I mean, everybody goes through it because you're just going so hard at this incredible goal. And then all of a sudden it's over.
Gotcha.
All right, while we're looking for the next student here, I'm walking. I'm going to kind of bridge off of that. How difficult was that in 1980 then, whenever Americans weren't able to go to that Summer Olympics?
Yeah, I mean, you know, the boycott of 1980, it was so tough on so many athletes. I was very fortunate because I was able to continue on and ultimately go to 2 more Olympic Games, where many of my friends, that was the only Olympic team that they made. And so then, you know, and they made the Olympic team, but they never really given their due, you know. Boycotts hurt the wrong people. You know, they really hurt the athletes. And then in 1984, you know, the Eastern Bloc countries boycotted the Olympics here in LA, a tit for tat kind of thing. But in my sport, in diving, my competition was China. It wasn't Russia or, you know, or Czechoslovakia or, you know, any of the Romania and any of those other countries, the Eastern Bloc countries. My competition was China. So in 88, 84, my competition was there. So, you know, and, you know, it's a shame because the athletes, if you think of an elite athlete, basically an elite athlete, there's an expiration date. You know, it's like a carton of milk. You know, if you go past your expiration date, you know, it doesn't happen. It's not gonna, you know, it doesn't work. So, yeah. So it's really difficult when there is an interruption of that, of the quadrennial, because every 4 years, my entire life was geared towards the quadrennial, every 4 years. Every 4 years we have an Olympics, so it was all kind of geared towards that. Even in college is 4 years. So, managing that. So yeah, it was tough for a lot of people.
All right, someone have a question? You can ask a second one. All right, we'll go Emma, then get you after that.
Okay, so what was it like winning 4 gold medals?
Each medal was different, because even in 1976 Montreal silver medal, that was a totally different experience. I had to wait 8 more years before I could go to another Olympic Games. And being in Los Angeles, it was like in my own backyard, which was awesome because my parents could be there, and friends, family, had a lot of support. So, that was a totally different experience. I also felt that I was at the peak of my game at that time. I broke 700 on 3-meter, and then I broke 700 on 10-meter platform. By the time 88 came, it was in Seoul, Korea. My parents didn't go. They got tired of traveling with me. But he's like, oh yeah, you go do that thing you do. And so it was, each one of them was different. So and actually, each one of those medals, there's a different story to each one of those medals, which is really interesting. Like in 88, I hit my head on the springboard, and coming back, that was a whole experience. And then 10-meter platform, I was 28 at the time, and I had this 14-year-old boy from China who was pushing me. And it came down to the last dive. We were just neck and neck going back and forth, and, I pulled it out. So, each one of those competitions is, different things kind of stand out in my memory.
I'll come right back to
Hello.
Hi.
All right. I've been wondering, what was it like whenever you the reaction whenever you came home from losing, and then what was it like whenever you came home from winning? The reaction.
Yeah. Okay. So in 1976, when I came home, it was weird. It was so weird because I was only 16. I didn't think anybody was watching.
Yeah.
I really didn't. I was an active kid. I didn't watch a whole lot of TV. And so, it's like, why would anybody sit at home on a weekend when, and watch this stuff? I didn't get it. So, when I was coming back from the Olympic Games in Montreal, we had a layover, I think, in Chicago, and I felt like these eyes on me. People were staring at me, and it was like, I felt really weird. I thought, shit, is my fly down or what? I thought that was really weird. So I asked my mom. I said, well, what's, do I know, do I know these people? She said, no, they probably saw you on TV. I was like, oh. And so then when I got home, they made an announcement on the flight, because when we landed, there were cameras, people. It was crazy. They were celebrating me, and here I took second. I was a loser, and so I just really didn't understand it. So it was really confusing. Winning, they had tours afterwards, like, and a lot of us were invited to the White House and paraded around and all that. And that's fine. But it can also be, exhausting and, yeah, I mean, so and I wasn't in it for that. That wasn't the reason why I was doing what I was doing. I really wanted to perfect my performance. That's where, my focus was. All the other stuff was just stuff and attention that I could take it or leave it.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
Do you think if you would have not retired and came back another year, do you think you would have won gold?
Oh, I thought about that because like after 88, I retired. And then 1990, I was at the national championships and I got on the boards and I was diving and said, oh my God, you could win nationals. And I probably could have, but, and flattery is very seductive. Because like when they're flattering you, like, oh, you could come back and win, you can do this. It's very flattering and that's very seductive. So I went to my coach, Ron O'Brien, and I said, well, what do you think about me making a comeback? And he said, look, you've been out of the sport for 2 years. You haven't been training. The Chinese have not stopped training. You know what it would take to go back to the Olympics. And he said, and anything less than 2 golds is going to be a failure. And he said, is your heart in it? He asked me if my heart was in it. He said, if your heart is in it, I'll coach you. But if your heart's not in it, then, best to move on. And so obviously the thought of coming back was more out of a place of the lack of anything else to do in my life at that time, and that's not a good enough reason to come back. So I stayed retired and never really made a comeback. And would I have been successful? I would doubt it. I truly would doubt it, because you really have to be committed. You really, really have to be committed to something like that. And I don't know that, like when my coach asked me if my heart was in it, and I couldn't answer him. So obviously my heart wasn't in it.
Thank you.
But I mean, yeah, if your heart's in something, I mean, you can move mountains,
Someone can ask a question too if they've already asked one. Anybody got a question they want to ask? Okay, here is Charles.
Hi, Charles.
Hello, how are you?
Good.
I was wondering what was like your day-to-day training like to be like in top physical shape and your best game, just waiting in those 4 years for the Olympics to happen.
Well, when you're training for something like the Olympic Games or, anything that, you really are kind of focused on, you go on training cycles. Okay. So early in the year, say January, February, the Olympics were in August, September, they're towards the end of summer. So when you first start your early part of your training, January, February, high repetitions, a lot of, you're doing a lot of repetitions. You are also doing plyometrics and strength training to prevent injuries. Plyometrics to improve your jump height, to improve, certain aspects of, of your skills. And then closer to the competition, at trials, Olympic trials, you have to peak for that. So then right before that competition, like my coach, Ron O'Brien, it was, when we get to a site, it'd be 3 days training, 3 days off, and then 3 days, and then 3 days start the competition. So it's like it was so, and those times when we were on a taper, that you're tapering off, so you're focused on quality rather than quantity. And so during the taper time, when we weren't able to train, when we weren't supposed to be training, that would drive me nuts. I mean, I would go on long walks. I mean, one time I remember at one competition, I went for a walk and I walked so far and it was dark and I had to call my roommate and say, I'm in Laguna Beach. Can you come pick me up? Because I didn't have the energy to walk all that way back home. I just walked.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
What is your favorite Olympic memory?
My favorite, I don't know that I have a favorite yet. Each one is different. Not really a favorite.
Did you have a favorite medal memory?
Favorite medal memory. Well, actually, it wouldn't be the Olympics, actually. It was the World Championships in 1982 in Guayaquil, Ecuador. And I was at the World Championships. And so I won the prelims at the World Championships. And so we go reverse order of finish. So I was the last diver and each diver was introduced. And Alexander Portnoy was second to me. So he was the second to last diver. Alexander Portnoy was introduced to the crowd as the Olympic gold medalist 1980. And then they introduced me, and I was introduced as Olympic silver medalist 1976. And in my head, I looked over at Alexander, I was thinking, you won because I wasn't there. And so I always wanted my performance to speak for itself. I didn't want to have to speak for my performance. So I felt that I had something to prove. And so I was going through the competition. Everything was going really, really well. And it came down, it was the last dive. And so I checked the scoreboard to make sure that they had the correct dive number. And I noticed that my score was still flashing on the board, which meant I already won. I didn't have to do my last dive to win the World Championships. And I really wanted to prove myself. So I really focused on my last dive, my front 3.5 pike, and I nailed it. And I think it's still the highest point spread that any world competition has been ever won in diving. So yeah, so that is memorable. That is memorable because I set an intention to make a point, and I was successful. I think I made a point.
Yeah. Thank you.
Sure.
What do you think your favorite Olympics was to compete in?
My favorite Olympics to compete in. To compete
Yeah.
or
I mean, just kind of like
just
any of it, just like your favorite Olympics.
okay. So Los Angeles to compete, you know, the competition,
Yeah.
the actual competition, I'd have to say Los Angeles. Because it was outdoors, it was a beautiful venue, it was a beautiful day. I love diving outdoors. And so, yeah, so that was my favorite competition. I actually had fun in the village in Montreal when I was 16. Because I became friends with it was the Soviet Union at that time, the Soviet divers, because they were closer to my age. I was only 16 and they were, 17, 18, 20, so they were closer to my age because my teammates were in their 20s. They were already, out of college and all that. I was still in high school. So, and we would run around the Olympic Village and have water balloon fights and, scare people. I mean, we were just doing kid stuff, and that was fun. So, yeah, the Olympic Village, I think that I enjoyed that experience, most as far as the sites. 1988, Seoul, I was older. I was more there to do a job. It was, kind of work. So
It's very cool.
that's my
Thank you.
experience. Yeah.
Right there. All right, Luca has another question for you here.
Okay.
Hi there again.
Hi.
Okay. Was it stressful being up there and around all those people that were watching you to dive? Was it stressful?
Was it stressful? It's basically what I was trained to do. Because I had been performing on stage since I was 3. So, that was I'm innate, I'm really shy. Okay, I don't feel I do well in social situations. So, but when it comes to performing, that's a whole nother thing because that's what I trained for. I've been on stage, I've been in theater productions, I've been in the Olympics, so that's what I was trained to do. And I understand that. So yeah, there's a certain level of comfort with that. And also the training that you do, like early on, I learned early on in my diving career that whatever training you're doing in your practice is what you're going to deliver when you're competing. So I always tell the athletes that I work with to train as if. When you're training as if you're at the Olympic Games. So if you have pictures and what the site looks like, what the boards feel like, what the atmosphere feels like, in your visualization work to put yourself in those positions. And I learned that early on because when I was diving, when I was 15, 16, diving with Dr. Sammy Lee, he'd say, okay, Klaus is winning. You need 8.5s on this dive to pull it off. And then I would do my dives. Sometimes I was successful, sometimes I wasn't. So you practice that way that, oh my God, everything's on the line on this one dive, how can I manage that? How can I be successful? So training as if you were actually in that situation. So that's something that's really super important if you're preparing. Because like when I started working with the athletes, USA Olympic diving team in preparation for London, because we got 0 medals in 04 and 08, 0 in diving. And so when I went to the kids and I said, okay, what's your ultimate diving goal? And they said, make the Olympic team. I said, and then what? And they just looked at me and said, make the Olympic team. You know, and I asked them, I said, well, don't you want to get on the podium? Don't you want to win? Don't you want to bring something home? They weren't thinking that way, and they weren't training that way. So once they started to train that way, training as if they are at the Olympic Games, then they started becoming successful. We got 4 medals in 2012 and 3 medals in 2014 or 16 or whatever.
Thank you.
So, yeah.
All right. We're moving along. Lots of questions.
Sure.
Do you still like dive in your free time? Like, is there anywhere for you to be able to dive?
You know, I don't find myself at the pool very often. So like when I was on the tour, in the cliff diving tour, I was sports director. And so on the cliff diving tour, occasionally they'd have pool time and not be on the cliffs or wherever the venue was. They'd go to a pool, and oftentimes when I went to the pool, then I'd bring my bathing suit and I'd get on the boards and play, you know, and that's all I just get out there and play. I don't do any difficult dives or anything like that, but, you know, I just play. But I don't find myself at that many facilities where I can throw on the suit and do, you know, do some dives.
You had another question. Okay.
So I just thought about asking, so you obviously knew, like, rediving, you knew that if people found out you had HIV, it was going to be a big thing. And then people obviously did find out. What made you want to, like, go public with that information?
Well, secrets isolate you, right? You know, it's very isolating. So I felt like I was living on an island with barely a phone for communication to the outside world. And so I knew that if I felt this way, I probably wasn't the only one. And so I knew that that was kind of my next step in my journey in this life, you know, is to come forward with my, you know, my HIV status. Also too, in 1988, when I was diagnosed, there wasn't a whole lot of compassion surrounding HIV. A lot of the attitude was amongst a lot of people was that, oh, it's killing the right people. You know, it's killing IV drug users, prostitutes, and gay men. You know, like it was, you know, it was, you know, there wasn't a whole lot of compassion. There was a lot of fear surrounding it. And so, you know, I think for myself, it was an important step in my growth, you know, that I let go of those secrets, share those secrets, and, you know, just be, you know, authentic with who I was and what I was dealing with.
All right, back to our all-star David, who started it off here.
I'm back.
Then,
All right, so a lot of people will consider you the greatest diver ever, right?
right.
Okay,
I've
so
heard that.
so outside of diving, who do you think's the greatest Olympian ever?
Greatest Olympian.
Yeah. Any sport.
Greatest Olympian. Greatest Olympian. You know, I'd have to put Jesse Owens up there, you know, because at that time, you know, there was so much going on in the world and not a whole lot of diversity and him going, and competing and being as dominant as he was. And, that's really a testament to, I feel his talent and drive. So yeah, I would probably say Jesse Owens.
We just learned about him in class the other day too.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, you just now made me very excited because I'm sure they've been tired of hearing of Jesse Owens. All right, we have about 10 minutes. Anybody have questions? We got about 10 minutes left till we're finished.
But don't you think so too?
Oh no, that's I
Jesse
absolutely.
Owens,
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
Yeah, because I know what Dr. Sammy Lee had to go through for his training because he was Korean. And so he didn't have pool time. The only days that he could train was on Friday because they drained the pool on Friday and filled it back up on Saturday. Jeez. So if you were non-white, the only time that you could get in the pool was on Friday.
And he won 2 gold medals.
And he won 2 gold medals.
Yeah, wow, that's crazy. All right, here's Emma.
Okay, in your whole entire career, what are you most proud of?
In my whole entire career, what I'm most proud of, I would have to say my book, Breaking the Surface. It was published in '95. I came out about my sexual identity, an abusive relationship, my HIV status. And when I was on book tour, people were coming up to me and saying, "You saved my life." And so that's really making a difference. And that's ultimately, I think that what we're all trying to do is make a difference in this world, whether it's, with an individual by being, a good mother, a good father, a good brother, a good friend, whatever that is, however you impact whomever you want to impact. But I'd have to say Breaking the Surface is probably the thing that I'm most proud of. Because I came forward with information that I really didn't have to. I wasn't, and I wasn't forced. I was compelled to do it because I felt that it would be for the greater good, of others. And on book tour, people were coming up to me and say, "Oh, I came out to my family and friends about my sexual identity with your book," or "I came out to my mother about my HIV status with your book," or, so I felt that was a tremendous gift, and so, yeah, the one thing that I'm probably most proud of, for sure.
All right, our school day is about to end. First off, thank you so much for agreeing to do this and being so receptive.
Sure. Sorry, I was late. I had in my phone a different time. So
totally okay.
So
I am going to ask you one last question.
Sure.
It's actually a boy who's in college now, but this is the 3rd year of this class, and he said, I think this is great, that we should always end the interviews with, if you were going to give 1 or 2 pieces of life advice to a high school student, what would that advice be?
Advice to a high school student. Just know that everything's going to change. Everything will change. That's life. Whether it's good, it's going to change. Whether it's bad, it's going to change. So, you know, life isn't stagnant. Life is in constant motion. So no matter what situation you're in, it will change.
Well, again, we can't thank you enough for doing this, and it made that much more of an impact, us studying the Olympics. So thank you so much.
My pleasure.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.